speaking of what is in focus, let's take a look at the top global headlines this morning. Then, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has defended President Donald Trump's tumultuous tariff policy, which has put global markets on a roller coaster as a way of creating strategic uncertainty that gives Washington the upper hand. Now, remember that since returning to presidency, you did have the US president who slapped 10% tariffs across trading partners, but an additional 145% levy on products coming in from Beijing. In retaliation, you do have China that has also responded with 125% tariffs on US goods. And despite Trump saying that there are many deals on the table, details have been scanned, and when pressed for clarification, you do have Bessent who dodged the question, only saying some negotiations were moving along very well, especially with the Asian countries. But moving on then, global finance leaders came to Washington seeking clarity on what it would take to get some relief from Donald Trump's multi-layered tariff assault, on just how much pain it will bring to the world economy. Ending the meeting, in fact, with questions and answers, most participants in the IMF and World Bank had a sense that Trump's administration was still conflicted in its demands from trading partners. In fact, IMF top boss Georgieva also acknowledged that countries were anxious about the uncertainty shock to a global economy buffeted by the pandemic, inflation and wars, but held out hope that trade negotiations would ease the tariff strain. So that's the latest coming in as far as that particular meeting is concerned. But moving on then, US President Donald Trump called on Russia to stop its attacks on Ukraine, expressing disappointment in Moscow's continued aggression. Trump, in fact, said that his meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky at the Vatican had gone well, describing Zelensky as calmer and willing to make a deal. The two leaders, in fact, met in Rome during the funeral of Pope Francis, marking their first encounter following a tense White House meeting in the month of February. Now, do remember that the White House called the Trump-Zelensky meeting very productive, while you did have the Ukrainian president also describing it as good and very symbolic exchange that could become historic if it leads to joint results. However, you do have US Secretary of State Marco Rubio also saying that the Trump administration could walk away from the peace deal if Russia and Ukraine fail to make meaningful progress. But moving on then, Iran and the United States have in fact agreed to continue nuclear talks this week, even as Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi voiced extreme caution about the success of the negotiations to resolve a decades-long standoff. In fact, US President Donald Trump has signaled confidence in clinching a new pact with the Islamic Republic that would block Tehran's path to a nuclear bomb. Now, Araghchi and Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff held a third round of the talks in Muscat through Omani mediators for around 6 hours. So that's the latest coming in on that front. But let's keep it going with Iran. In fact, on a somber note, the death toll from a powerful explosion at Iran's biggest port of Bandar Abbas has risen to at least 40, with more than 1,200 people injured, as per state media, the Iranian Defense Ministry. However, it denied reports of missile-related cargo, while you do have government officials who have also said that it is too soon at this point to know the exact cause of the blast. So that's the latest coming in as far as that update is concerned. But
if you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.